Gather round. No retreat.
Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A reminder as well that you can download our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1 followed by the words Spot and Media. Businesses in Balaclava, St. Elizabeth have been forced to close their doors for the third consecutive day following heavy rains on Monday. Trees, stones and other debris blocked some of the areas. Residents say over the years, the community is often flooded when it rains and the problem still persists. One business operator who was affected gave his account of the events.
Water come down for today. Start yesterday. But we never know the water don't come so hard today. And start out the whole business. Everything will lose. It's all happened over the years and nothing has been done about the problem. Nothing at all. We complain, we do everything. And right now we're out of business.
He adds that there wasn't enough time to take preventative measures as the water flowed quickly.
In about 30 minutes, the water coming upon us, broke the glass and everything. I couldn't do anything. We try and push around the things, but the water was too high. I come down too fast.
Right now, more than about 4 feet of water.
4 feet of water or more inside.
Residents say the infrastructural damage cannot be determined until the water recedes. In the meantime, they are calling on the government to fix the drains and other infrastructure that contribute to the flooding.
Mr. Fisher, Councillor, Mr. Redman, MP, we need you up here right now. We need your presence right now to see what is happening in the community right now. We can't go like this. You know, this problem exists for a long time now. And I don't want to hear the complaint. It destroy the business in Balaclava. We need the presence of here right now because this can't continue like this.
The number of road fatalities for 2017 has passed 100. The Road Safety Unit says up to yesterday, the country recorded 101 deaths from 94 crashes. 10 of those fatalities occurred over the Easter weekend, pushing the number of deaths for the month of April to 18. However, road fatalities have decreased by 21% when compared to the corresponding period in 2016. Fatal crashes have also decreased by 12%. Director of the Road Safety Unit, Kenut Hare, says speeding was a major factor in the crashes. According to Hare, many of the fatalities could have been prevented if the victims were wearing seat belts. Meanwhile, motorcyclists account for 29% of road users killed since the start of the year. The Port Royal community is still in mourning following the death of one of the operators of popular seafood restaurant Gloria's. 49-year-old Cesar Prawl was driving his black Lexus SUV along a section of the Port Royal Main Road when he lost control of the vehicle. He was the sole occupant. An alleged eyewitness said Prawl was flung from the vehicle onto the roadway and suffered severe head injuries. The police theorized that speeding was a contributing factor to the crash. Meanwhile, workers at the Gloria's restaurant said Mr. Prawl was more than just a boss. He was like family. Police.
To lose right now, words cannot explain. I've got family member die and I've never felt the way that I felt about him yesterday when I heard that he died. Believe me, I can't find word to explain. The whole work group, sisters, brothers, nephews, nieces, the whole community felt it's like a storm passed through.
The Clarendon police say a man held in connection with the murder of two teenaged boys in the parish last week was released yesterday after being questioned. Head of Operations Superintendent David White said the man was released after being questioned in the presence of his attorney. The cops are, however, making steady progress in the probe in the case. 19-year-old Richard Blake and his 16-year-old brother Ricardo Blake were shot dead last Thursday when gunmen opened fire on their home in Sandy Bay. Police say the gunmen were searching for a relative of the deceased who reportedly stole a gun from them. Lawyers representing Tesha Miller will be going back to court today to have him released from custody. Miller pleaded guilty on Tuesday to breaches of the Immigration Act following his recent capture in the Bahamas. He was fined the maximum of $100. However, the High Command said he's still wanted for questioning in relation to gang activities. TVJ News spoke with his attorney, Bert Samuels.
We thought that he would have been released because the judge had asked both at the habeas corpus hearing and this morning whether other charges were pending against Mr. Miller, and we were told no. To our surprise, he paid the fine, thought he would have been able to walk out of halfway through a free man, and they have on his card that they are investigating gang-related matters. And that is a total shock to all of us. So we're going back to court in a fresh habeas corpus. We want to go back before the court to say that the police are in breach of the Bail Act, which says a person shouldn't be held beyond 48 hours without being charged or brought before a court.
Miller is to be questioned in relation to a series of murders and shootings in the Spanish Town St. Catherine area last year. More than 100 persons have been killed in the violence. Justice Minister Delroy Chuck says the West Kingston Compensation Committee is looking at the estates of those who were killed. The committee is chaired by former President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Seymour Panton.
They have over almost 1,000 files that they're dealing with. Sadly, they find a fair amount of duplication, where you might have two persons from the same household claiming separately, and therefore they have to make sure there's no duplication, and then they have to fit that against. Some of persons have got some compensation already, so if they've got compensation already for, say, damages to their fridge or television, then that has to be taken into consideration as to what more should be made available to them.
Senator Mark Golding has weighed in on suggestions that Jamaica should hold a national vote to decide whether they should change the Buggery law. Prime Minister Andrew Holness indicated that the issue could be put to the people at an appropriate time.
Subjecting that to a referendum type process is not something I think would be a good idea, because I suspect that, again, it would suffer from the politicization which is inevitable, especially on such what I call a hot button issue on which people have deep feelings. I think the government needs to decide whether it wishes to move forward with an amendment to that legislation or not. And our position had been that Parliament should have a conscience vote on that.
Jamaica now has access to $170 million through the International Monetary Fund IMF should the need arise. This as the country was given a passing grade for measures taken to reform the economy under the precautionary standby agreement. However, in making the announcement via video conference on Tuesday, the IMF mission chief to Jamaica, Dr. Uma Ramakrishnan, noted some areas of concern. These included negotiating for public sector workers, which must have salaries and wages at 9% of GDP by March 2019.
I think the path needs to be agreed on with the unions on how to reach that 9%, because the 2-year wage negotiation that is going to happen will cover the 2-year period in which this 9% will have to be reached.
With drought conditions affecting some farmers across the island, the government says it's working to provide them with more efficient irrigation systems. Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Dr. Horace Chang, says that will be done over the next 5 years. He was speaking recently at the Montpellier Agricultural Show, where he underscored the importance of agriculture to Jamaica's economic growth.
We have indicated publicly agriculture, tourism, and services are the three sectors of the economy that can grow the country at the fastest rate, creating jobs, good quality jobs, and creating an economy in which Jamaicans can find employment and really enjoy some level of prosperity.
And it's that time again where we look at what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In the next edition of the health report, we look at alcohol consumption, in particular binge drinking.
Binge drinking can actually cause an erosion of the lining of the stomach, and the patients can present with bleeding from the stomach. We've seen cases like that. People who have a history of drinking alcohol regularly, more than social drinkers, they are also at risk for having cirrhosis of the liver, where the liver is actually damaged by the alcohol over time. And then you go on top of that and have the binge, and they're at risk for serious issues like liver failure.
That's the health report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's healthy living tip. There are certain people who should avoid alcohol completely. They include persons who plan to drive a vehicle or operate machines, take medications that interact with alcohol, have a medical condition that alcohol can aggravate, and someone who is pregnant or trying to become pregnant.
In news overseas, members of the British Parliament have approved Prime Minister Theresa May's plan to hold an early general election on June 8. Mrs. May made the unexpected announcement Tuesday that she would seek a snap election less than halfway through her government's 5-year term. She says the aim is to get a stronger mandate for the country's historic withdrawal from the European Union. 522 of the 650 sitting MPs voted in favor of the June 8 election. That was more than the two-thirds majority that was needed. 13 voted against the motion. Now to news in sports. Jamaica's successful Carifta track and field team returned to the island on Tuesday after claiming their 33rd consecutive hold on the Carifta title. Details from TVJ's Renardo Brown.
Jamaica's 84-member contingent returned to the island on Tuesday afternoon after claiming 87 medals at the Carifta Championships, one more than their 2016 tally. 7 championship records were broken by Jamaican athletes over the 3 days, 4 of which came in the field. 2 of those records went to the under-18 thrower, Daniel Cope, who established new marks of 18.17 meters in the shot put and 61.25 meters in the discus throw.
Well, the performance for the boat record was a great feeling because my plan was to go over there to get a qualifying mark for World Youths, and I did in the discus, but I missed out on the shot put. But I have achieved a personal best, so I can't complain.
There were also 3 records on the track, 2 of which came in the hurdles event. One belonged to Sanique Walker, whose 58.95 seconds in the under-18 400-meter hurdles came as no surprise to her.
Well, I'm not surprised because I wanted to break the record from last year, but unfortunately I didn't, so I came back and I said I wanted to take it this year.
The other came in the boys' under 20 4x400-meter relay, where Jamaica finished second behind Trinidad and Tobago, but in controversial fashion.
From I came straight and I went into the entry. The guy came over into the entry and he was hitting in my hand, and about 20 meters out, when he actually, like, the stride came exactly in front of me, so I got half balance and then I lose my balance, but everything happened for a reason.
We thought it was an infringement, an obvious infringement. Again, we protested. We all protested, including even Dr. Warren Blake, because we thought fair was fair, and we thought that he was definitely prohibited from getting around him. And also they also threw it out.
And the debate about the Austin Celia Award once again resurfaced, with no Jamaican winning the accolade since Ewan Blake in 2007. It was no different this year, with Glenn Kunst of Curacao being given the nod for his effort in the boys under 20 pole vault event.
They said they give to the most outstanding performance at the meet, and the person who they chose, the athlete from Curacao, had a lot going for him. He really destroyed the pole vault record, moved it from 410 to 475 in a record which has been intact for many years. Plus he was the home crowd, So, I mean, those two things going, it will be really very difficult to expect anyone to top that.
Jamaica's athletes will now turn their attention to the National Junior Championships on June 17 and 18 inside the National Stadium as they seek qualification for this year's World Under-18 Championships in Nairobi, Kenya. Bernardo Brown for TVJ Sports.
And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Join us for Primetime News at 7. On behalf of the News Sports and Production teams, good afternoon.
Your safety and security in